Welcome, not only on behalf of the League of Women Voters, but for all of us that are concerned about this subject, Medicare and scams. The presentation on fraud will answer some questions you might have, and the takeaway from this is that you can make a difference in this community and on this subject. Elizabeth Conrad is the director of the state's Senior Medicare Patrol Project, a program of the Coalition of Wisconsin Aging Groups, of which I'm a member. It's a program that began in 1997 with CWAG, the Coalition of Wisconsin Aging Groups. With 4 staff members and statewide volunteers, the Wisconsin Senior Medicare Patrol is one of the oldest federally funded fraud buster programs in the country. The project is dedicated to stopping healthcare fraud, waste, and abuse. The Senior Medicare Patrol empowers senior to prevent healthcare fraud is that program of the Coalition of Wisconsin Aging Groups, and their motto is advocating for all generations. At the end of today's program, if you want more information about the program or the project or the League of Women Voters or the Council on Aging in Rock County, there's good information lying on the table over here. Welcome now Elizabeth Conrad. She is the director of Senior Medicare Patrol Project. And she will introduce the person she's brought with her, and we will allow perhaps half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and then receive questions that you might have before our hour is up. Elizabeth Conrad.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Kevin Brown at this point. Kevin, come on up. That's right. What's new with the Senior Medicare Patrol Project since 1997? Well, last year we were offered a 1-year opportunity to increase our funding by hiring more staff to increase what the Administration on Aging is calling capacity building. And so I'm delighted that I was successful in getting this wonderful person who had so many job offers, who comes to the table with so much experience and expertise dealing with federal grants. Has anybody in this room written federal grants besides Carolyn? Some of you are not raising your hand. Okay, so you know what an arduous task that is. It's one thing to say what you're going to do, but you have to demonstrate how you're going to do it, and that's the difficult part. So I'm delighted Kevin Brown is the Wisconsin SMP, or Senior Medicare Patrol Capacity Building Grant Manager and also Trainer Extraordinaire. He makes me look better than I deserve. So I'm delighted to have Kevin today, and I want to tell you there's a lot of new things happening. Carolyn's known me for many, many years. I'm delighted that I now have a website, wisconsinsmp.org, which is professionally maintained and has Wisconsin-specific stories on healthcare and consumer fraud issues. Also national stories. We have a calendar of events. We have a lot of upcoming trainings and senior expos and fairs that we participate in all over the state. That's on our website. I publish a monthly fraud alert newsletter that also can be found on our website. We have audio podcasts now on our website. Kevin just finished a series of 6. He did his in English. We also have a series of 6 podcasts with different topics in Hmong and Spanish. So because of this 1-year extra funding and building capacity, we were successful in getting that accomplished. And Kevin is wonderful. I can't say enough about him, and I'm delighted to work with you. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about your capacity building grant, and then I'll get into my presentation. Kevin.
Thanks, Elizabeth. She's my #1 fan, in case you haven't noticed, which is great. It's actually great to work with Elizabeth. I've only been there since November, but it feels like we've been working together for years, which is a
Yes.
good thing.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
Oh, sure, sorry. I'll project to the back. What the capacity building grant that she is talking about was awarded to CWAG last fall, and as Elizabeth said, we were, because of the grant, we were able to hire 2 new staff people. One is me, and one is a woman named Elena Duncan, who is a part-time administrative project assistant. And the purpose of this grant, as you can imagine, since it says capacity building, is we want to build our program. We want to be able to do more. So how are we doing this? Well, as Elizabeth mentioned, one of the things I'm doing is trainings. So far I've done 3 trainings across the state, one in Milwaukee, one in Green Bay, and one in Phillips, Wisconsin. And this training is an all-day, 6-hour training. And what we do is we teach people what they need to know about Medicare and about SMPs and about Medicare fraud, waste, and abuse so that they can go out and do presentations at events or table at health fairs, community events. And so far, I'm happy to report I've trained 23 people since I came on board, so that's great. Most of them are volunteers. We also have professionals who come to these trainings because they can help us spread our message also. I want to point out that there will be an SMP volunteer training on May 4th in Madison, and there is a flyer over with the handouts if you're interested or if you know somebody who might be interested. You know, we'd love to have more volunteers from Janesville. I actually have a couple people already in Janesville who I think are going to come to the training, so if you do come, you will not be alone. The training will be in Madison at our CWAG office, which is actually very convenient for you to get to because not only is it in Madison, which isn't too far, but we're on the right side of Madison in that we're on the east side, so you can hop off the interstate and get on the Beltline and you're practically there. So it's really, you know, you don't have to drive all the way to the west side or the south side. Elizabeth mentioned the podcast. That's another thing that we've been able to do because of this grant. I've recorded 6 5-minute audio podcasts on a variety of topics. We are posting them on our webpage monthly, starting in March. So in March, we posted a podcast on the basics of Medicare. In just this week, we've posted the second podcast, which is on Medicare error, fraud, and abuse. And then from now until August, we will be posting 4 more. And the other topics are what is Wisconsin SMP? We've got one about identity theft. We've got one on our volunteer opportunities. And we also have one on Medicare scams that affects non-English speaking populations. One of the things we're trying to do with this grant is reach underserved people. Hence, the podcasts are not just in English, as Elizabeth said, they're in English, Spanish, and Hmong. And we are running promotional spots all over the state in all 3 languages to let people know that these podcasts are on our webpage. If you don't know what our webpage is, it is www.wisconsinsmp.org. And as Elizabeth said, we've got lots of great information and resources on there. Finally, I just want to mention some other ways we're trying to reach the underserved. One of the things that I've done is reach out to the Hispanic community in Madison. I've given a bunch of our materials to an organization called Centro Hispano, and I'll be dropping some more materials off to one of the Joining Forces for Families office, so we're very excited about that. Basically, so that's what we're doing. One thing that's clear from us being awarded this grant is this is a big priority of the federal government. I mean, the feds are funding Medicare fraud and are preventing Medicare fraud because it's a huge issue and we want to crack down on it. And I'm sure Elizabeth will tell you some of the exciting things that they're doing. And we also have a video that we'll show you in a little while that, you know, will let you know a little bit more about the issue. But one of the things that's really neat that they've come out with the last few weeks is a most wanted list. You know, like you have the 10 most wanted of the FBI. Now you can go online and see the 10 most wanted Medicare fraud artists. So anyway, I'll turn it back to Elizabeth. Thank you all for coming, and if you have any questions, obviously we'll have some time at the end, and we'll hang around afterwards and talk to you personally.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, as I said, as Carolyn said, my name is Elizabeth Conrad, and what I'm about to tell you is a true story. There are 6 Elizabeth Conrads living in a 60-mile geographical area, 3 of whom are convicted felons. I am not one of those. Now that sounds like something I just made up to do an icebreaker. No, even all 3 have the same middle initial, and 3 have the same middle name spelt the same way. So I have received bills for services that I certainly didn't receive. What was really creepy was I had gone to Divine Savior Hospital in Portage because I used to work in Columbia County and live in Columbia County, and I had some physical therapy done there at one time. And so about 4 years ago, I got a bill saying that I had received physical therapy at Divine Savior Hospital, and I got the bill the day after the appointment was made. So I knew that it was a billing error. So I immediately called Divine Savior Hospital and explained to them, look, this is really bizarre. It's almost deja vu, but nonetheless, although I've received services, this is obviously a mistake. What happened was they sent it to the wrong Elizabeth Conrad. It was a billing, well, they made a mistake on the address is what happened. So if you have 6 names come up and you happen to hit the wrong line to send a bill to, it's going to happen. So they were very, very happy that I had called. In fact, I was surprised how happy they were. And then after they told me how happy they were, I told them what I do for a living, and then they were really happy that they told me what, yeah. So anyway, so that's a true story. In fact, I can tell you many, many true stories, and I think that always gets, I think, the message across better than me standing up here giving you facts and statistics. But as a senior Medicare Patrol project director, and there is an SMP project in every state, also Washington, D.C., and the U.S. Virgin Islands and the U.S. territories. There are 54 projects, so in each designated state or commonwealth or whatever it may be, there is a director that is able to receive allegations of Medicare and Medicaid fraud, waste and abuse, and there's mechanisms in place where you can actually register a complaint with us, and I'm the conduit. I'm the middleman, if you will, middlewoman, if you will. I talk to the client, get the client's permission to go forward to have a Medicare or a Medicaid investigator look at the documentation and then make a determination. Is it a simple billing error? That's not fraud. But if it's possibly something that is showing a trend in a particular community, they pass it on to law enforcement. At that point, I never know what the outcome of the case is. And that is very disappointing to me, because how can I show the value of the program if I don't get the feedback? I ask the clients that I represent, if you get something in writing from a Medicare program safeguard contractor or investigative entity, please make a photocopy or scan or do something, fax, send me a copy, because if you don't let me know, I'm not going to know what the outcome is. So there's many cases where the beneficiary got some resolution, but because they didn't tell me, I never knew what happened with the case, and I have to file a 6-month report to the HHS, that's Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General. That's the watchdog for Medicare and Medicaid services. So I can show that I perhaps sent out 30 complex issues in 2009, for example. I don't know what the outcome is. Some of those cases are still being investigated. Some of those cases are closed. But if I don't get any feedback, I never know. And therefore, I can't get the credit for the amount of money that was recouped back to the Medicare program. This has been an ongoing problem since 1997, Carolyn, and we're still trying to get that resolved. But I encourage people, really, if you receive a bill for a service or product you did not receive, please pick up the phone and call the provider first. Then I want you to challenge yourself to call 1-800-Medicare. See how long it takes to get to a customer service representative. Report it to Medicare. And if you cannot get something resolved or something just doesn't smell right, contact your county or tribal benefit specialists. They are the miracle workers in your communities. There's a county or tribal benefit specialist in every county and also the tribes. And I know with the restructuring of the aging network over the past 10 years, most communities now are part of an aging and disability resource center. Rock County is not yet, okay. Madison isn't either, Dane County isn't either. Okay, so anyway, there's the Commission on Aging, there's the aging unit, usually within the county building, depending on how the agency is structured. There are some differences, but anyway, the benefit specialist is the person who helps people 60 and older in their communities with all kinds of issues. It could be a landlord-tenant issue. It could be maybe a Social Security disability denial. It could be maybe that Medicare did not approve a service that the individual thought should have been approved. You can do what's called an appeal, and that benefit specialist can help you through the process. You're lucky in Rock County you have 2 benefit specialists, correct?
Yes.
And they are both very, very wonderful. I've met them. In fact, I've met most benefit and tribal benefit specialists around the state. So going through those 3 steps, then if the benefit specialist, with the client's permission, wants to go ahead and forward a complaint to me, they're the best referrals I get. Let me give you an example. I had an adult daughter call me. She said her mother had been in a nursing home. Her mother was not poor, but her mother was there for such a long time that her money disappeared. So then she ended up having to go on Medicaid, and she was embarrassed about it, but she was on Medicare and Medicaid. And then she failed very quickly and ended up on hospice. She received hospice services while she was a resident in a skilled nursing facility, which is perfectly acceptable. 6 months after her mother died, the daughter received a bill for $7,000 from a provider located in another state. The daughter called the provider and said, there must be a mistake. My mother was on Medicare and Medicaid, and she was eventually on hospice. I don't see how she could have any extraordinary charges for the services she received. Yes, she was on hospice care. Yes, people came in to provide that care. Everything was arranged through her physician. Everything was legitimate, but she couldn't possibly owe $7,000. They told her, you owe the money, and if you don't pay us right away, it's going to go to collections. She went to the benefit specialist. The benefit specialist said, call Elizabeth. So thanks to the benefit specialist's expertise and referral, the daughter referred the case to me, and because her mother, of course, she was deceased, but the daughter had been the power of attorney for health care, so that made it a little bit easier. So we gathered the documents, and we went ahead and we forwarded on the complaint. And immediately, the provider sent a letter saying, oh, my goodness, we made a mistake. This is a billing error. So I saved that woman and that woman's family $7,000, only because she came forward. What would have happened if she wouldn't have come forward and contacted me? They would have harassed her. They would have sent it to collections. I never found out why this happened. The adult daughter was worried that if it happened to one person, it could be happening to all kinds of people. But $7,000, that's an awful lot of money. But the daughter was savvy enough to know that if you're on Medicare and Medicaid and on hospice, there wouldn't be any out-of-pocket costs. Everything would be covered. So that's just one example, and that is a true story, and I did get credit, Carolyn, for that. $7,000. Well, I saved the beneficiary's estate $7,000. I'll tell you another story. When I started on September 10th, 2001, I did a training that fall in Green Bay, and a gentleman in a wheelchair and his wife came to that training. And he came up to me after my presentation and said that he and his wife were having coffee with maybe 6 other couples who were lifelong friends at a cafe. And he mentioned that he received a shot an injection in a hospital, emergency room setting, and the bill was $12,000. He said what was really bizarre is the fact that another person sitting at the table said the same thing happened to them. Now, they didn't come to me to forward a complaint. They went as a group and filed a complaint against the physician, and he showed me the documentation of what happened. He didn't need SMP. He and this group of people, I don't know how they did this, if it was a class action thing or what, but this doctor was forced to pay back to the Medicare Trust Fund $120,000 because of his actions. So he wanted to come to my presentation to tell me what he had experienced. And it's too bad we didn't get credit for that one, Carolyn, but it just goes to show you, you know, as you said at the beginning, one person can make a difference, and it's true, one person can. So what is my job like? It's frustrating, it's disappointing, it's challenging, but I'm a true advocate. That's first and foremost who I am and what I do. Because we educate people, and with the funding saying the people should be 60 and older, obviously most of the people that we do trainings for are people who are on Medicare. Now, you know, the majority of people on Medicare are 65 and older. There are people who are deemed disabled through Social Security who receive Medicare after 27 months. That's because Medicare is Title 18 of the Social Security Act. So that's how that fits together. How come if I have to apply for Medicare, I have to go to Social Security? That's why. And what happens if you lose your Medicare card? How do you get another one?
You have to contact them.
Who do you contact? Do you contact Medicare? Social Security, yes. If you need a duplicate card, contact Social Security. What I'd like to do, is it okay, gentlemen, if I move around a little bit? Is that all right? Okay. What I'd like to do is find out how many of you are on Medicare. Would you raise your hand? That's right, nice and high. Okay, would you take out your Medicare card for me? You're raising your hand back there. What is it?
I don't carry it with me.
You don't? Well, what happens if you would have to go to the emergency room? How would they know that you're a legal resident? How would they know you're 65?
I don't know.
Would they have to take care of you?
Yes,
And why is that?
because I came through the emergency room.
Very good.
Good answer.
Okay. It's amazing how many people, when I ask them to show me their Medicare card, will just automatically show it to me. Now, there's two schools of thought. Should you carry it with you or shouldn't you? There's been a lot of discussion about that. I say it's prudent not to carry anything with you that's going to identify who you are. Name, address, date of birth. Is date of birth on your Medicare card? Is your Social Security number on your Medicare card? I'd say the majority of people have their Social Security number on their card as their Medicare number, unless they're covered by their spouse and perhaps didn't work outside the home or work in a setting for at least, I guess it's 40 quarters by the IRS. So most people have their own Social Security number on that card. What happens if someone has your name and address?
They can get your identity.
Well, they can really find out an awful lot about you. And people who are really involved with social media today, and I'm not knocking social media at all, but people put too much information on their Facebook pages. Oh, Grandma so-and-so is going to France for 3 weeks. Well, you know, there are people looking for more information all the time, but it's very easy today to purchase information about just about anything. But you want to protect your Medicare card as you would a credit card. What happens if the Medicare card is lost or stolen?
You have to report it right away.
But what can someone do with a stolen Medicare card?
They can use it.
How can they use it?
To get services and items.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, they can use it, I suppose, for, if they have medical problems.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. In
Yeah.
fact, Medical ID theft is the fastest growing type of identity theft in this country. Go ahead, sir.
Well, my wife and I carry our Medicare cards because we do quite a bit of traveling now that we're retired. So if we were in an automobile accident, we have relatives that live in Tennessee, South Dakota, and other places. So we want to make sure we have our insurance card as well as our Medicare card.
Sure, I mean, it's up to you. It's up to each individual whether or not you want to carry your Medicare card. Now, some people are saying, oh, you shouldn't be telling people that they should not carry their Medicare card. It's an individual choice. Look, when do you need to show your Medicare card? When you go to the doctor, right? Even though they have it on file, you shouldn't have to show it every time. Some places now are doing hand scans, which I think is great, to make sure that the person who is scheduled to receive the service or surgery is that person. And I think that's a great thing. But it's dangerous to carry it with you because it could get lost. But if you're going to the doctor, it's okay to have it. But certainly if you're on the road traveling, I think it's a good idea. You just need to protect your personal information as best you can. And I'm amazed when I go to a restaurant and I walk by and I see women's purses sitting open, like they go up to a salad bar and leave their purse wide open for somebody to walk by and steal their information. Sir, you were going to say something?
Well, the other thing that we decided to do quite a while ago was we bought a shredder.
Yes.
And when mail comes in, we don't throw mail, or we get so much mail that's worthless, at least that's what I call it. And rather than pitch it into the wastepaper basket, if it's got our names on it, all that stuff gets shredded.
Right, that's a good idea.
Even tear up the junk mail.
Yep, tear up the
Yep.
junk mail. How many of you shred your documents? Quite a few of you? Good, and now they're saying, well, you should have a cross shredder. Anyway, it's important, yes, to even shred your junk mail because people get offers all the time, and of course thieves are looking in mailboxes. If you have newspapers sitting outside your door and you're gone for a couple of days, that's a red flag that people are going to know that you're not home. So again, it's a matter of personal choice whether or not you want to carry that Medicare card with you. Many people don't know what kind of Medicare coverage they have. Do you have a red, white, and blue card? If you have a red, white, and blue card, you have traditional Medicare. If you have a white card that says Humana or something else, you may have a Medicare Advantage plan, which is a different way to receive your Medicare services. So Medicare seems to be very complex. It's not as hard as you may think it is to understand. It's confusing, yes, but you want to be a good consumer, and by being a good consumer, you get a Medicare and You book in the mail every year. If you're on Medicare, you get a Medicare and You book, a Wisconsin-specific book that has the Medicare Advantage and Medicare prescription drug approved plans in the back of the book. If you go on Medicare.gov and download Medicare and You, it'll be a national publication. The unfortunate thing about Medicare and You 2011 is that it has the deductibles and co-pays listed for 2010 because it went to press before the government knew what the appropriate numbers were going to be. So it's still a very good book. I give it out to a lot of professionals who get a lot of questions. The service coordinators, I've been doing a lot of outreach with them, and they're the ones that get all the questions, which makes sense. They're the manager of the building. People have a problem, they're going to come to that manager. So this is a wonderful reference book, and I have lots of free copies at my office because I'm allowed as a Senior Medicare Patrol Project Director to go ahead and order these. Well, there has been a lot of confusion with the new health care reform, a lot of misinformation. The crooks out there couldn't wait to take advantage of people. Did anybody in this room get a $250 check last year because they hit the donut hole for Medicare Part D? Okay, well, the government last year offered $250 to each Medicare beneficiary that hit what's known as the donut hole after a certain amount of drugs have to be purchased. You get to the point where you don't have coverage through your Medicare Part D plan. That's called the donut hole, and the government issued $250 rebate checks that were automatically deposited into bank accounts.
But you have to pay $4,000.
Yes, right. But the government was issuing a $250 check to people as soon as they reached the donut hole. there was a lot of crooks out there taking advantage of that, saying that they would have to come to their, say the person gets a call and somebody has to come to their door to verify who they are, to make sure that their Medicare number is correct, and that at that time they would sign a form and then they would receive that $250 rebate. I mean, these crooks jump on opportunities and think about them before it even is coming close to fruition. When the new health care law was introduced, we got a lot of calls from consumers saying that they got calls from individuals representing themselves from Medicare, and that they needed their bank account information and their Social Security number in order for them to sign them up for Obamacare, which was a requirement, and it was going to replace their Medicare card. That was reported in our state. It first was reported in Missouri, but it did happen here as well. And the thing is that the people who are such good fraudsters know how to upset people. They are expert con artists. They know how to push your buttons. They know how to get you to react. They say you have to react right away. You have to make a decision right away, and if you don't, you could go to jail. Some people were told they would go to jail if they did not sign up for Obamacare. Obviously, the federal government says there's no such thing as Obamacare, but that was one example. I've had people call me up saying that they gave out their Medicare number to a licensed insurance agent in exchange for a free meal. Now, this has happened. You know, come to our free presentation. Come to this free presentation. Give us our name, address. Give us your name, address, phone number. Kevin, would you start collecting all the personal identifying information while we do this? And, you know, come to this presentation, get a free meal, and you might learn something new. Well, a lot of people thought that by signing up, they had a sign-up sheet, that by signing up, they were just signing their name and getting a free meal. They ended up signing papers where they ordered a Medicare prescription drug program, for example. I've had many calls from durable medical equipment salesmen saying that many clients have called me with one particular salesman in Dane County over the past 3 years who goes to senior expos and fairs, sets up a table with all his durable medical equipment. Diabetic shoes is what he really favors, and that he'll have people stop by the booth. They'll sit down, they'll show them their Medicare card. They'll end up getting diabetic shoes because they're entitled to them. They're covered under the Medicare program, and they end up perhaps getting a pair of shoes maybe for free or basically no cost, but the shoes don't fit. So then they contact the salesman. He gets very angry. He gets very intimidating, and he frightens people. He has been reported. Unfortunately, he's still doing business, Carolyn. So it's very frustrating to report these people and still find out that you know, basically you can't stop what they're doing. But please, if you go to a senior expo or fair, please don't get out your Medicare card and show it to somebody who said you're entitled to a service or product through Medicare. It happens all the time. Is what the person doing illegal? No, that's the problem. Is it right? Is it just? No, it isn't. And it's affecting the integrity of the Medicare program, and that's what we care about. We want Medicare to be around so when all of us need it, it will be there. And $60 billion is lost to fraud, waste, and abuse every year. How can that be? How can it be $60 billion? Well, with the new health care reform, the government's going to do something about it. In fact, they have dedicated $350 million over the next 10 years to increase efforts with fraud. And I'll just go through a couple of those things. Bear with me here. There's been a series of health care summits that have taken place around the country, and you probably have read about those, but I just want to give you a little update on that. In 2010, the Attorney General and Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius announced the formation of a joint senior level task force to fight Medicare fraud throughout the country. The task force is called the Healthcare Fraud Prevention and Enforcement Action Team, or the acronym is HEAT, H-E-A-T. There's an important website, stopmedicarefraud.gov. Stopmedicarefraud.gov. Well, when Attorney General Holder mentioned that he discovered and arrested a drug dealer who turned to Medicare fraud because it was faster and easier than selling drugs. That's just one example. Now, we know that most healthcare providers want to help people and they want to follow the law. However, there are enough crooks out there to take advantage of the system, and it costs, as I mentioned, billions of dollars each year. Well, who cares, right? We all should care. This is money that could otherwise be used to hold down health care costs and also provide care for people who really need it. We had an example of a rent-the-patient scheme, and I have a handout on this. In 2003, in Wisconsin and California, it was announced that non-English speaking Medicare beneficiaries were being rounded up and taken to clinics receiving unnecessary surgeries. This was a very serious problem. How could this happen? They were non-English speaking. They were told that they were going to go to a casino or something, and they got on this bus. They were transported to the clinic. When they got to the clinic, they said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Well, as part of your trip, as part of this special offer, we're going to provide you with some laboratory testing because we want to make sure that you're all healthy before you go to this casino." And so, well, again, remember, people, they didn't speak English. So they were told one thing and experienced another, but they actually had surgeries that they did not need or want, and some had serious complications because of it. Those people were prosecuted, but that was called rent-a-patient scheme. Also in 2003, it came to my attention that there was a durable medical equipment salesman who was contacting other salesmen around the state of Wisconsin, telling people that they knew an easy way to make a buck, and that would be to contact Medicare beneficiaries and make an appointment, go to their home, and have them fill out a form which indicates who their doctor is for a free scooter. Whatever happened to the scooter store in Texas? In 2007, it finally went through court, finally got a settlement, and although they said they didn't do anything wrong, they paid back the government $1.7 million. How many times a day do you see advertisements for the scooter store? I even went to a joint American Society on Aging National Conference on Aging, or National Coalition on Aging conference in Washington, D.C., and one of the vendors was the scooter store. I couldn't believe it. And we were there for a national conference on healthcare fraud, so it was interesting. So anyway, what's wrong with the government regulations? What's wrong with the guidelines? The guidelines, it pays to rip the government off. It is so difficult to successfully prosecute a entity, person, organization regarding healthcare fraud. You have criminal prosecutions and civil prosecutions. It takes years for a case to actually go to trial. And if you have good lawyers, you can just keep putting that court date off, putting it off, putting it off. So the government for years tried to do something with the scooter store, and it took them 4 years to finally come and get a settlement, a judgment of $1.7 million. But we did find out who the salesman was in Wisconsin, and he was in the central part of the state. He was contacting all these other salespeople to sell scooters, and what would happen is they'd list the cost of the scooter at the highest cost and provide an inferior product. That's how they really made a lot of money. So that person got in trouble too. So, sometimes you are successful. What about Medicare and Medicaid fraud in Wisconsin? You wanted the local scoop on that. Well, recently our Attorney General has been successful as part of a settlement and judgment with a number of other states to receive funds back to Wisconsin. And in the March Fraud Alert newsletter, Kevin, you want to get that and just pass it up? I brought a copy of my most recent newsletter for all of you to take, but I wanted to tell you how much money this is. Wisconsin and 37 other state attorneys general reached $68.5 million settlement, actually judgment, with AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals. Have you heard of AstraZeneca? Oh yeah. Well, Wisconsin's take was $1.5 million. So we got $1,500,000 out of this multi-state settlement with this pharmaceutical company. And what they were doing is they were prescribing drugs that were not appropriate. They were prescribing their drugs to people who were not appropriate to receive the medication. For example, what this is called is misrepresentation and deception when it's marketed for an unapproved or off-label use. The example I'm giving you is called Seroquel. Seroquel is an antipsychotic drug that is heavily prescribed to dementia patients who have a lot of anxiety and restlessness. It's a way to calm them down. Now, that's called an off-label use. And I know a lot of people who are on Seroquel. It's a very dangerous drug. The side effects are horrendous. And it took a major action like that after a 3-year investigation for something to finally happen with this drug. So I'm glad that the Attorney General has been working very, very hard to not only get settlements as part of a multi-state criminal and civil case with pharmaceuticals, but has been very successful in doing so. As far as Medicare fraud, there's no real easy way for me to do a Google search and find Medicare fraud in Wisconsin. Medicare fraud does happen here. We're considered one of the low fraud states. There's 3 different categories, 3 different tiers of states. We're one of the low fraud states. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It does, but it's still, what is fraud? It's intentional, it's deception, it's misrepresentation, and it takes a court of law to determine whether fraud has occurred or not. So it's very, very difficult. I can't just tell you easily how much Medicare and Medicaid fraud was perpetrated in 2010. I called the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit investigator that I know, and he said they have to file annual reports through the Office of Inspector General, so that's part of the annual report that goes to Congress every year. But because of confidentiality and HIPAA rules, they have to be very careful what they disclose. So it's much easier to find, say, a major judgment settlement with a corporation, a pharmaceutical company, than it would be on an individual. Because of confidentiality and privacy, that's very, very difficult to find. I was told the only way I could find and track cases would be to go to both federal courthouses in our state and also to other courts. But I would have to go there every day, and I'd have to go through the records every day. I mean, how do the journalists find out about these stories? That's what they're doing. They're pounding the pavement. They're going down to see, what court cases are scheduled this week. And so we're lucky when a journalist is interested enough to follow a Medicare or a Medicaid fraud case. But we've had successful prosecutions, and William Hanrahan was very successful in prosecuting many Medicaid fraud cases over the last 10 years. Of course, he's doing something else now. He's a judge, but he really did a great job. And so you can say what you want about politics. I don't talk about politics. Obviously, I'm funded through a federal grant. It would be inappropriate for me to make comments, but I'm always happy to showcase our successes in Wisconsin, and whether that's a pharmaceutical judgment or it's helping an individual not get ripped off with a scooter scam, then I'm happy about that.
How best are you going to use your last 10 minutes, Elizabeth?
Okay, I know I'm past time.
And
What would you like me to do, Carolyn?
Well, you have a video that you would like to share?
Yes, yes, I do.
And you have 10 minutes.
Okay, let's show the video. Sure.
I've already got 8 Medicare numbers, and I'm going for number 9.
These prescription drug cards look just like the real thing.
Like Medicare would really pay for a housekeeper. Some people will believe anything.
The people you just saw are actors, but the scams they're acting out aren't made up. They really happened, and they're likely to keep on happening. But if you know what to watch for, they won't happen to you. If you can remember 3 words, protect, detect, report, I'll help you through the rest. The hard part is, without the music and the sound effects, the bad guys can be hard to spot. They appear to be very helpful people.
This is packed with nutrients and vitamins to keep you healthy.
You're not the only one confused by Medicare Part D, but the plan that we're offering is actually completely straightforward and at a very low price. Just a flat fee of $2.99.
So I'll send someone once a week to give you a medical checkup and clean your house. And then I'll submit this form to Medicare and they'll cover my fee.
Those friendly people are involved in some of the most common Medicare scams around. Scams that cost both the government and you. It's obvious when you think about it. When Medicare pays out to people like them, there's less money available for legitimate Medicare claims. Fraudulent Medicare claims add up to billions of dollars every year. So it's worth taking a closer look. Let's start with the phone scam.
I'm with Medicare, and we're calling to help you understand our Medicare Part D.
Did you hear the first red flag?
I'm with Medicare.
A lot of people work for Medicare, but they are not allowed to make cold calls.
No, you don't have to pay me the $2.99 now. I can bill you for it. But first, I actually need to verify your Medicare number. Do you have your card handy so you could read me that number?
Red flag number 2. Did you catch it? You might think this is only about cheating you out of $299, but you're wrong. Your Medicare number is worth more to him than $299 that comes out of your bank account. With that information, he can steal your identity, set up fake credit cards, order equipment, or worse. It's critical that you protect that number.
Let me read that number back to you. 432.
If this guy really worked for Medicare, he wouldn't need to ask you for your number over the phone. He'd already have it. Sometimes the story changes.
The cost of the Iraq War is taking money from Medicare. And if you're relying on that, you could be in trouble. I'm calling to offer you an alternative prescription plan. It's just $2.99. Yep, that's right. It's only $2.75. Yep, that's right. It's just $3.29.
Of course, the art of stealing Medicare numbers doesn't just happen over the phone.
Hi, I work with the health department, and we're delivering these free nutritional supplements to people who are on Medicare. It's part of a preventative health care program, and all you need to take part is proof that you're a Medicare recipient.
I take vitamins. I don't need that.
Well, our research shows that because vitamins can get expensive, people tend to stop taking them as they get older, which is precisely when they need them most. That's why we deliver these free every week, so you'll be more likely to keep up your healthy habits. I just need to see your Medicare card.
Just a minute.
Free. Did that word set off the alarm bells ringing in your head? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Once you know what Medicare covers, you can detect frauds like this and avoid being part of them.
Okay, I'll just record your number.
Now that he has her number, he can make a Medicare claim. And you know nutritional supplements aren't the only thing he delivers. State-of-the-art wheelchairs, scooters, diabetic supplies, heating pads. Most of the time, what he delivers is not what the doctor ordered, but once he delivers something, he can make a claim. The bill goes to Medicare, and he pockets the profit.
What you'll probably start with is the laundry.
The laundry? The government doesn't do laundry,
What else does she do?
Oh, she does a great job on windows.
and the government definitely doesn't do windows. Medicare is strictly medical, but there are plenty of people who are offered to clean your house, bring you groceries, even wash your hair on Medicare's dime.
So I just submit this form to Medicare every week. And all we need from you now is your signature on the registry, your name, and your Medicare number. Do you have that card, sir? Excellent. So let's start with the signature right there.
Okay.
Again with a Medicare number. By now, you know the story. She offers a little, then takes a lot from the government. She may not even send a qualified nurse. And chances are good she won't even show up next week. That kind of scam can be really tempting. She's offering something you'd like to have. Other people take the scam even further. Some drive a medical van around offering to do medical tests you don't need, just so they can bill Medicare for them. In Idaho, seniors were rounded up and taken on a trip to Las Vegas. Then Medicare was billed for a week of medical supervision. It's not enough to turn down an offer like this. You also need to report it, so the Medicare abuse can be stopped. Now, I've put the odds in your favor. You've seen how important it is to protect your card and keep your Medicare number out of the wrong hands. When Medicare is ripped off, people who rely on the program and deserve its benefits are the ones at risk. More than 42 million people, in fact. Here's what you've learned and what you should tell your friends. Medicare doesn't make cold calls. Medicare doesn't go door to door. And Medicare doesn't offer free services. But they do. You can avoid being a victim of fraud. Remember to protect, detect, and report. Protect your Medicare number as you would your bank account number or a credit card. Detect fraudulent scams by knowing what Medicare does and doesn't cover, and report suspicious behavior. Protect, detect, report. If you suspect you've been a victim of Medicare fraud or would like to learn more about avoiding and preventing healthcare fraud, contact your local SMP program. To find your local SMP program, call 1-877-808-2468 or visit the SMP locator, www.smpresource.org.
All right, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is it also true that doctors have been found guilty of committing Medicare fraud? They bill for services they didn't provide, that kind of thing?
There, you'll find healthcare fraud in the system under every possible avenue. That means ambulance services, other transportation services, yes. Healthcare fraud can be perpetrated by providers, by individuals, by organizations. But yes, there have been doctors that have been prosecuted. There have been hospitals that have gotten into trouble. So every entity, whether it's home health services, it could be therapy services, skilled nursing facilities, every area of healthcare, every area of Medicare coverage is vulnerable to fraud. Yes, that is true. But you have to remember that the majority of providers are honest. And when you see that there's over 450 billion Medicare summary notices sent on a daily basis, can you believe that? That's a lot. So no wonder there's 60 billion in error, fraud, and abuse. A lot of it is double billing situation, which is considered abuse, but it still all adds up. But yes, you do find it in every healthcare arena. Yes.
I'm not wanting to have the last word. I'd like to give you the last word. But before that, thank you for coming on behalf of the League of Women Voters. Here on the table are information from the Rock County Council on Aging. There's a wonderful resource directory only on one piece of paper, other resource guides, their newsletter, and some educational things that are coming up. So Council on Aging has given us material for you to take home with you. Elizabeth Conrad and the Senior Medicare Patrol Project has brought material for you. If you would like to speak with Elizabeth, do that now as individuals, and the rest of you, thank you so much for coming, and we're now adjourned.